First time I knew about the project, it was gobsmacking.
How big is the project?
The industry has to do something different.
Because at least one market analyst said you are, in terms of Brazilian rare earths, the most undervalued stock on the market.
The returns from this could be absolutely fantastic.
I'm Justin Kelly, host of the Unicorns podcast. My guest today is Alistair Stevens, CEO of Resouro Strategic Metals. It's a company on the ASX considered by at least one research analyst as the cheapest Brazilian rare earths company on the ASX. Alistair Stevens, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Justin.
Can you begin by telling us a little bit about your professional background, particularly in the resources sector?
You know, I'm a graduate in geology originally and back in 1987. So I've been in the resources industry about 35 years now. 50 years of that was in operations in gold and nickel in Western Australia. And then I stepped out into the specialty and critical and rare metal type industries. So my first role as CEO was with a company called Resouro. I had this project in Central Australia. No one knew what to do with it. Sort of got to a point where there was a phosphate and a rare earth project. Eventually took it through, did the engineering, all the metallurgical test work to develop a flow sheet for it. So I've been now working in the rare earths and rare metals, niobium space for 20 years.
And so what was it that attracted you to the role at Resouro and specifically the project?
The first time I knew about the project, it was gobsmacking in terms of its size, 1.7 billion tonnes, and they've only explored 7% of the total holding. So this has got the potential of being a giant. There's not much work to be done on increasing that resource size because there's adequate enough there for capital justification.
How big is the project?
Oh, look, it could be significantly bigger. And look, there will probably needs some work done, just a little bits of drilling just to keep tenements in good standing, but nothing in terms of a lot of work in resource development material. I'd be guessing, and it'd be flippant of me to actually say how big I think it could be, but at 1.7 billion or a high-grade pot of 120 million tonnes, there's enough to justify investment on the right criteria going forward. So that was the first thing that attracted to me. Second was rare earths are reactive in a chemical environment. When you have other minerals that complicate that chemistry, it becomes difficult to actually manage the chemistry of the process. The fact that this is titanium, which is an inert, non-reactive mineral in this process, means there's definitely two product streams that come out of this. One could be titanium, the other rare earths, and they won't interfere with chemistry. And that is really what's attractive about it. The other thing is that titanium is an open, mature market with transparency of pricing, demand and supply relationships. You can go to a Shanghai metals market and look for the price of titanium. It's quite open. So it'd be very easy to actually justify investment and get capital injection into the company based upon offtake agreements for titanium. And rare earths is a lot more difficult, a lot more tricky. So this is a titanium with a rare earth byproduct, or co-product, if you like. But put that all together, and you say, oh, this is a really good fundamental investment strategy. It's located in Brazil. And if you look at the amount of infrastructure, government, technical skills that are available in that country, it's a great place to actually develop something. So it's not as challenging as other parts of the world.
Tell us about the titanium that you have at Tyros.
Yeah, it's a different mineral. So most people would have heard probably the rutile or the ilmenite titanium minerals. There's another one called anatase. And it's not commonly known, mainly because the Australian market is dominated with the ilmenite and rutile. So anatase is like a rutile, but they're both 100% titanium dioxide, TiO2. Rutile has a different crystal structure to anatase. So they're called, it's a polymorph. One looks a bit different than the other, but they're both the same chemical makeup. And the anatase market's quite transparent too. There's quite a lot of demand for it.
So Resouro is a truly international business. You've got the project in Brazil. You were listed and you are listed in Canada. Now you've listed in Australia as well. You're based in Perth. Grew up in Brisbane.
Yeah.
Tell us about the appeal of the business on an international scale.
The ASX is a great exchange for mining and resources, and you'll see a lot of resource companies coming to the ASX because it's the best exchange for And BHP's withdrawal out of the London Exchange, I think, is the biggest signal of all in the market that Australia is the right place for mining and resources. The international appeal is that we're still a Canadian registered company. We're listed in the ASX, and we've got a project almost 12 hours away from us on the other side of the earth. So it became, well, what is the right business structure for this? We need to look after shareholders and the listing in Australia, and that's my purpose. I'm basically looking after Australia, Asia. The chairman's living on the other side of the earth, and we together will manage the technical programs of implementation. It's a bit like I will be responsible for the technical program. That's my goal, but Chris will, on the other side of the earth, will make sure in that time zone things are managed and maintained in momentum. So I think it's a really good structure of business. I've heard of, and I discussed this with mates about how do you manage businesses when they're in Brazil, and there's plenty of cases where they don't put the right kind of business structure in place, and they lose focus on the management, and the business suffers because of it. The fact you've got the executive chairman and a major shareholder sitting on the other side in the Americas makes that a really good business model. There's responsibility on both sides of the earth.
Tell us about what's happening on the site, in particular with the test work that's going on, and some news flow that we can expect in the coming months.
So there has been some additional drilling done at the moment, and the drill results will come out probably this quarter, and probably a little bit of an update therefore on a resource statement probably early next year. We do have some early stage metallurgical CITA tests for metallurgical test work. My role is now getting more sample into the chain, looking at various alternatives for processing metallurgical recovery, developing a flow sheet, and then going forward with a scoping to feasibility study status. But importantly behind that too is that we're now starting our environmental studies, the EIA, and there's been some very heavy engagement with our community relations. So there's very good relationships with the mayor of the local municipality over there at Tyros, and a lot of the community are aware of what we're doing. So the foundations, those important foundations in community relationships and environmental management, are already the foundation in place. But the rest of the time, it's really about, okay, we're going to need a flow sheet, we need an engineering study to work out what the capital cost is and what the economics of return on investment is.
Have you mapped out that timetable, what that looks like? And that's what the investors will want to hear. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the board has given me a 2-year time frame to deliver a feasibility study. So there's a lot of work to do. There's not much time to sit and navel gaze in this process at all.
The whips are cracking.
Oh yeah, absolutely, with very good reason.
You've been on the road in Sydney this week. You've been talking to investors, analysts, brokers. What is the general market reaction to Resouro and where it's placed relative to where it sits on the ASX?
It's consistent that it's a stunning project. Everyone's enamoured with just the size and the mix between titanium and the rare grade of the rare earths. We are a market cap at the moment about $30 million. Against our peers, we're significantly undervalued. And I don't want to go on too much of a pegging exercise here. My role is to make sure the company's appropriately valued in the way the market sees us. And my job, I think, is to create transparency around where the project is, what the programs are, and what the potential for this dual co-product titanium rare earth project is.
Because at least one market analyst, I think it's Pitt Street Research, said you are, in terms of Brazilian rare earths, the most undervalued stock on the market. That must give you some encouragement.
Oh yeah, so it's a great place to start, isn't it? It is. And all the valuations I do within myself, what I think this project has to offer shareholders, it's a dynamite of a project. I think there needs to be traction in the market with some data around the drilling and the metallurgy, what the flow sheet is. The nitric acid process at the moment is a particularly good one. It's one of the highest grades of recovery in the industry. So my job is to make sure that we are. I've been in this industry 20 years. When someone first rang me and said, "Have you heard of this company called Resouro?" No. "Have you heard of this project called Tyros?" No, I haven't. And have a look at it. And I was like, wow.
Where did this come from?
Wow. This has been hidden in the dark. Where did it come from? So, I've been in 20 years. I've got a reasonably good database. I didn't know about it. My responsibility is get this project known.
So, as someone very experienced in the resources sector, yet new to this role, as CEO, what are some of your absolute priorities? Where are you focused?
Focused is proving that the fundamentals of this business, the project, has got the right criteria for a significant investment return. And that means we become an investment portfolio. You take out the risks of environment, you take out the risk of community, you actually take out the risk of metallurgy. Now it comes down to what's the capital cost and what's the operating environment. It becomes an investment strategy. That for me is the primary focus, and to allay the fears on risk. Interesting enough, the nitric acid digest process is likely to produce somewhere between no tailings to a very small amount of tailings that will go into backfill. Now that, of all, is one of the risk mitigation strategies in this process that I'm looking at very carefully. Everyone is aware of what happened at Mariana and the catastrophe and the tailings dam collapse in Brazil. That is to be forefront in everyone's mind, that risk management is a fundamental part of this process. If this nitric acid works properly, we will absolutely minimise the amount of footprint we have in tailings to potentially nothing, which is one of the greatest outcomes. If you go back to Mark Cutifani in Anglo, who's saying, when it's time there, the industry has to do something different. We have to look at how we actually create a better environmental footprint, a neutral footprint, and we actually minimise our footprint in tailings and in the pit. What is that combination? Well, this project might be one of those projects that fits that criteria, a new fundamental process that eliminates tailings dam management.
What is your message to existing shareholders, but those investors that go through the ASX looking for potential diamonds in the rough to invest in? They're weighing up a number of different criteria and metrics that they look at. So what would your message be to both those that already hold the stock, but those that have heard about you, haven't heard about you, looking for potential? What can you tell them?
Well, the current shareholders hang in there because this is going to be a fantastic ride. And the register's got some great institutions as well as some family offices on the register, which is particularly encouraging first up. So they see the value, but they also see the other things that are good for value is balance of the board as well as project value and a capital structure which is attractive. This, I think, is a great investment because the returns from this could be absolutely fantastic. My view, it looks somewhere between, like an Iluka, which is a mineral sands titanium type producer, to a Linus, which is a rare earth producer. We've got both. So, my thoughts is eventually we'll be heading towards businesses like that, a combination of those two. In fact, Iluka is now actually building a downstream separation facility for rare earths. So it wants to expand its portfolio from mineral sands into rare earths. Here we have a project that has both the mineral sands and the rare earths combined together in a different process. So my pitch to shareholders is this is the stock to just keep investing in, just slowly, because this is a great project.
Alistair Stevens, CEO of Resouro, thanks for coming in and best of luck with the company.
Thanks, Jeff.